Okay, now that I've gone and set up my views, put them on my sheet, the next step will be to start gathering detail information. So how does all this information work? What's going to happen at the threshold of the door, for example, or the shop front? How's this Juliet balcony fixed to this concrete slab? Okay, and what kind of waterproofing are we going to have and insulation are we going to be using in this area over here? We have produced a lot of the preliminary stuff. So the first thing I would do is go and copy all the drafting elements. So like the concretes, the footing, for example, this DPC line. So if you hold control down, you can select, so hold control down again. So go and select all the drafting items that you need to, and then we'll transfer them. So like the ceilings, for example, tab, select the whole line, then control, select it. Select the ceiling again. Okay, I should have put one in here. I think I deleted by accident, but that's fine. I can bring that back. Okay, for the time being, that's all I need. I can literally use the copy tool, go to my details section. Okay, if you were to cut these up, remember, copy the information. It will copy in the same location. So just remember, you don't want to duplicate stuff. So maybe put it on the master view and then move the information to the dependent views. Okay. So if I just go to paste, align to current view, you'll notice that a lot of the stuff has come through. Okay. Right, so that's the first step. The next step we need to do is gather information. So I've got a tab open. I've used Google Slides, for example. So I create a folder where I move the images to, and I use Google Slides as well. So in Google Slides, what I like about Google Slides, you can go and research and find details, for example, and you literally can copy and paste the images and paste them into Google Slides. Once I've built up a library of information, I will then start piecing these images together and then using this information in my project. Okay, so how the shop fronts work, how the clip system works, for example, how the ceiling hanger, the shadow line works. So all of this information. So all I've done now is set up my details that I need. So for example, how this works, my Juliet balcony, how this would work, for example. Okay. The waterproofing, for example, I don't have a basement at the moment, but some of you may have a basement. So this is how you would detail this information. Okay, build yourself a library. The next thing that we do is we then, in Revit, we build up a drafting view with all those detail elements. So we're going to go to View. We go to Drafting View and call this Details. And change the scale 1 to 20, 1 to 10, it doesn't really matter. 1 to 20, that's fine. Then go to the folder where you've saved those images. So you can start dragging and dropping these images into the view and then start using these accordingly. You can make categories of these if you would like. Okay, so I'm going to drag this in. The next step I'm going to do is just scale this information. I know this is a 50 mil, so I'm going to assume that this is a 50 mil gap here and 50 mil down, but I'm going to assume that this is maybe 50 mil over here. So grab the image, scale the image. A lot of the companies you can get details from, but just remember, if you can't, this is what I would do. So scale, pick a base point, so from there to about there, that's going to be 50. Okay. Now that you've got the image in place, remember this is always set to background. Now you can start using some line work to represent this profile. So at scale 1 to 20, and this is why I like doing this in this view, you can start gauging the thickness of the line work. So I'm going to quickly do some line work around this, and then I might create a detail item family that I can use in my project because it allows me to give two series of detail level views. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to go to Annotate, Detail Line. I'm going to use my correct line weight for this. So I'm going to use line weight 3 in this instance. And I'm simply going to start drafting. You can see these 20 mil. So here we can start working out how 25 mil. This doesn't have to be super accurate at this point. Remember, it's just purely you're trying to represent how this works. Okay, so I want to see that from that. So here, 15 mil seems fine. You can maybe make it 20, but maybe 15 mil because usually these plasterboards are 12.5 mil thick, and then you put a skim coat, so 15 mil might work. We can always change it to 16 mil just to give us a bit more tolerance. Okay. Select the image for the time being. We can hide the image. So hide element. Now we can use some dimensions if we need to. Just to make sure everything's to scale. Okay, so yeah, you can change this. It doesn't matter. In the view, you can always change this 1 to 1. It doesn't matter. 1 to 5. I'm just using these dimensions just to kind of correct some of the inaccuracies of my sketch. So make sure that that's 50. Okay, I want this dimension. So in other words, if I tab and I found this point, I want that to be 50. And I want that to be 16. We could maybe make it 18. Just to give us more tolerance if required. Okay. At any point you can readjust this once it's done. Okay, so I'm going to start building up a library of information. Let's go to 1 to 5. Okay, so you can see slowly we can start building up the details that we require. Now that I've got some line work, I can go and make this a detail item family. So I'm going to go to File, New. I'm going to go to Family. I'm going to go Metric Detail Item. So remember, if you don't have these libraries, please seek assistance to get the correct library. So Metric Detail Item. I'm going to open this information. Now I'm going to start a detail item family. Now just be conscious, the reference planes that you see when you start this will be your origin. So where they intersect will be the origin of this. Okay, I'll probably work in this direction, but at any point you can flip this mirror once you put it in the project. So it's not that crucial that this point is exactly correct, but I might use it as the bottom. I'll see. I will work in this direction over here. So create a reference plane. You just want reference planes just to help govern some information. Sometimes you don't need too many. That's fine. I've got the information that I need. So I could go back to my drafting view. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this drafting view. I've got some line work in here that I can grab, so I can literally just switch the image off again. So you can literally use this hide element command. Just remember, if you're using the other command, if you right click and hide an object, for example, remember you'll have to use this icon to return that information. Okay, grab the line work that you want, Control C, Control V. Fantastic. So move all this information, move this. And then we can move it once more and just snap this in this location over here. Good. Use the line command, get these reference planes in the correct location. Line. And in essence, you could have actually brought the line work through first and then just put the reference planes in the right location. All that we need the reference planes to do is just drive the detail. Okay, so let's just check that this is correct. So let's put a dimension here. That's looking good. So let's just change this 1 to 5. Okay, so detail. And one more line. You can also, you don't need too many reference planes. You can also use dimensions and the line work from a reference plane to drive some of these line work as well. So I'm going to keep that locked. So that's going to be locked. So we're not going to use parameters in this instance. I might use a parameter just for this section over here. Okay, so we've got that in place. And then we'll just add detail, annotate, create aligned dimension. So from here to there, for example, here I can show you I'm just going to use this rather than another reference plane. We can drive a dimension. Okay, you can do that. I will create one more reference plane. Like that. Okay, good. And then DI will lock this one as well. Good. All right, the next step we need to do is just kind of give this a category. So in the Manage tab, we'll need to create a new category and assign this to this category. So we're going to call this Ceiling Trim. Try and put these on good categories so that it allows you to control. And what I can do is I can create a series of these in different line weights. If you want to just use line weights purely, you could just use 2, for example. So you know that everything on line weight 2 will be on line weight 2, for example. So just create one called 2, make sure that this is 2. Let's just create a new one, and you can make this 3. Okay, and you can know that this will correspond to my 3 line weights. So that's totally up to you. You can give things their actual names. Okay, or you can then assign a line weight that you would like to use at a very specific detail. Okay, all right, so that's totally up to you. We can explore this in more depth, but you can also give things a category. Just remember, if you're going to use 2 and 3, everything that's all the other detail item families that you make on the same, that will share the same line weight, will be controlled by the same line weight. So just be careful of that. So in this instance, I'm going to call this $20. It's just a level of control that you're trying to achieve. So that will be 3. Then delete that one for now. I'm just going to rename this one. And this one I'm going to call. But at any point in the project, you can go and alter this. Ceiling trim. You can use large, medium, etc. But for now, I'll just use ceiling trim 2, just so I can understand this better. And this will be line weight 3, F2. Okay. Apply. Actually, just to make things, I'm going to make things a little more understandable. I'll prefix. The idea is to prefix it with the correct line weight number to correspond with the line weight, and then you can categorize. Okay, press apply, press OK. Select all this detail line work. So this is our first part of our detail. So this one I'm going to change to ceiling trim 3. So it's scale 1 to 20. You'll notice Go to VG. Just remember we can switch off all this information for the time being just to preview this. So at 1 to 20, you'll see that it'll read a lot thicker. But when we start getting down to other scales, you want to use a different line work. Okay, so in essence, I'm happy with this end result. So I'm going to select all this line work. All I need to do now is give it a visibility parameter so that I can control it in the project view. So I'm going to go to Edit, make sure all that's set. Now the last thing I need to do is I need to assign visibility parameters. So I'm going to create a new visibility parameter over here. Visibility, I'm going to call this scale large. I'm going to create a new one and call this so we're going to have scale large and we're going to have scale small. Okay, select all this line work and then assign the scale large to this. Okay, if you go to your project family type settings, oh, I made a mistake, so let me just fix that quickly. So just go to parameters. This one I need to edit and make sure that it's also visibility, just so that it makes it more legible. Fantastic. Select all this information, make sure that you assign this to the large, and then in family types we're going to create a new type, so we're going to call this no detail. So this one will only consist of that line work. Create a new one. Trim detail. And this will work in the opposite direction. Press apply. You'll notice that in the view, the stuff that's not visible will be grayed out. So just that's how you test. Okay, but we'll show this in action in our project. Now the next step I need to do is actually add some detail to this trim. So here I'm going to go to a filled region. Here I need to find a steel layer maybe. We can go and change this. So here we're going to start using the correct category. So this will be to trim. And I'm literally going to match this information. Then I'm going to use my offset command. We over exaggerate the thickness. Just remember to now copy. We over exaggerate the thickness of the material just because it won't be visible at 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. So we exaggerate this detail for the time being, but by 0.5 mil. So you just literally trying to reproduce this detail as best you can. Okay, split so that it also represents correctly. Remember, we apply some tolerances in the views, which I'll explain later. Okay. All we have to do now is just make sure everything aligns. So I'm just aligning everything to the correct. I'm aligning everything to the correct reference planes just so that if I add parameters, it'll allow me to go and make this a parametric family. Align. Okay, align. Okay. All I need to do now is add some dimensions. These are purely just to govern the thickness of the material. Lock those in place. Okay, so just add a couple more. Okay, that's fine for now. Now I can simply select and finish this command. Now you notice we've got a steel. Okay, however, And then we just edit this filled region. The hatch needs to be grayed, so make sure that that's gray. Let's just go to 125 maybe, just see. This won't represent, it's just the line weights in this project, so sometimes what you'll need to do is manage, transfer project standards, just transfer the line weights, so check none, transfer the line weights from your project. Okay, just so that you can see this information better. Now you can start seeing this information better. Okay. Okay. Ignore that thickness for the time being, that will address itself. Okay. All I need to do now is select this trim and then assign it to the correct visibility, and that will be small. Okay, so now I jump between the two types. You'll notice that this section is grayed out. Okay. What we can do, we can add a parameter, maybe just to affect, if I drive this line, you'll notice we can use a parameter to adjust this thickness. Now there's one item that is not working, so just add one more and then lock that. Fantastic. Finish. Now if I drive this, you'll notice that this will work well. Okay. One last item to fix, so edit, align that to that. Fantastic. So you've got to test these things from time to time. Okay, now if we start moving this stuff around, it'll work better. Fantastic. Okay, align this to that maybe, and then align this point to there as well, and then it will all work together. Okay, so maybe this is the parameter that I can add, will be my shadow gap. So let's just add a parameter here. Okay, this we can make it an instance parameter, but for now I'm just going to call this shadow gap, and it means that in our family we can just change these as we need to. So we can make different types. Okay, just go to this one over here, make this 50 as well for the time being. Okay, now we've made a family that we can now use again and again and again and again. But it's a drafting item. Okay, I'm happy with the end result. I'm going to now save this, file save as family. Save it in the location where you like to work. I'm just going to save this on my desktop, but remember to save this. You can call the ceiling, name them correctly, trim, okay, shadow line, save. Alright, once you save this, you can now load it into your project. Exit this, go to your drafting view, so close this view, go to your details drafting view, reset, and now you can Control V, you can paste this back in. You can now remove this information. Okay, now get rid of that. Now I can simply go and say Annotate, Component, there's my shadow trim. Okay, what's neat is if I select the trim family itself, I can then change it to detail and no detail. Okay, and you can see at the scale that this is starting to work well. So maybe 1 to 10 as well, you'll see it will read well, and then 1 to 20, it will become quite a thick mess. So what we'll do now is just change it. So here we can change it down again to no detail. So it's just purely a bit of line work that will represent this trim. Okay, all right, so go and add all those images, give them a category. So I started drafting some of this information. Here you can see I started drafting how all of this works. Okay, I just needed to fix some information here. But in essence, I spent some time trying to draft how all of this information works. Okay, here's a slight error, but I just had to change some of this information. So pre-draft a lot of the stuff that you need and build the little objects. Just remember, if you're going to use, you can use just drafting elements and make them groups as well. So for example, here I went and created a series of filled regions. Okay, so I created a series of filled regions. So in Annotate, filled regions, I've gone and created a series. So I edit type. So here I went and created a series of filled regions, make them masking. Okay, so I created a series of filled regions, one for my sand layer, one for my aggregate base. Here I made a paving detail, so exactly the same way I made this. I made a paving detail item, then I made a repeating detail item for so I used this detail item, and then I made a repeating paving detail item. So if I went to Annotate and I go to repeating detail item, you can go and, so if I go to edit, you can pick a detail item, and then you can set the parameters up so that you can then use these objects like an array. So you can use array, or you can use the detail items tool. So if I go to component, detail items, okay, you see here I've got screws. I've made a whole lot of information. So I would go and get a whole lot of information and start populating this information. So in this view, very straightforward and easy. Let me just grab information from this view just to kind of demonstrate this. Control C, go to my detail view, paste the image here. Control C. Remember to scale this information. So select the image and then use the scale command, just to make sure that this information, and you can see 1 to 51, scale this so that you can work with it accurately. Okay, so in essence, all that we'll do, Annotate, I'm going to create a filled region, use the correct line weights once again. Okay. So I'm going to use one of these to start making my family. So I'm going to go to edit type. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to call this base just for this exercise. So call this base. Okay. Then what I'm going to do very quickly is just make sure all of this information works. So here I need to go and find a material to match. So go and find a material that will match my base. I'll use a drafting fill for this. So you'll see that the template file comes with a lot of the stuff already. So just go and find the appropriate material. So just keep scrolling through. That's what I need. Press OK. Just remember, at any stage as well, you can go and edit this information. You can change its scale to look correct. Okay, so find the right material. You can rename this. You can give it a new name. And you can change the scale. Okay. Press OK. Okay, drafting, line weight, press apply. Now, once you set all this, just make sure it's masking as well. Now you can simply start drawing the enclosure for the base. So remember, we want a 150 base maybe. Remember, use the correct line weights. in this instance, I'll probably use my one hatch layer. Okay, so just make sure all of this is one hatch. I'll make the ends invisible lines. So make these ends invisible lines. I'll finish the command now. Cancel. Now you can see I've managed to create a filled region. Okay, so spend some time, start populating this. Okay, now I've built up my detail information that I require. Okay, so the next step we'll need to start doing is we'll need to start focusing on populating this detail section with all this drafting elements and then hiding this information.